We had the ranking member, and we also had Dr. Scott say that the Henry Ford study was highly flawed by design. Do you want to maybe start there and defend the Henry Ford study?
Whatever you would like, Senator. I'm happy to do that. Yes. Thank you. Happy to start wherever you'd like. In terms of the Henry Ford study, I appreciate Dr. Scott's comment, but I don't believe Dr. Scott has actually read my submission, given his comments about what he believes makes this study fatally flawed. He points to one thing. He calls it detection bias, because what he's saying is that the vaccinated children are more likely to seek medical care than the unvaccinated children. Had he read my submission, he would have seen that the study authors who were looking to validate the safety of these vaccines specifically conducted sensitivity analysis to see whether there was detection bias. How did they do that? What they did is they looked at the average number of times that the vaccinated cohort sought medical care versus the unvaccinated. And what they found was vaccinated children sought medical care on average 7 times a year. Unvaccinated sought it twice a year, which would make sense if you have less illness. But for the unvaccinated kids, those 17% that had a chronic health issue, they sought medical care on average 5 times, which reflects that when an unvaccinated child had a medical issue, they did go see the doctor. Number 2, as the study points out, the type of health conditions that we saw in the unvaccinated population are not ones you wouldn't see medical care from. If your child has a serious medical condition, you're going to your doctor. You're going to the medical system. That's not me saying it. That's what these study authors pointed out. Also, to further validate their findings, they even reran their study to remove any child that didn't seek any medical care. So essentially, they removed the healthiest unvaccinated children, another sensitivity analysis they did, and they still found the statistically significant outcome that that I discussed earlier. Now, the other thing they did to make sure that their results were valid, and again, I assume they did this because they wanted to try and do exactly what Dr. Scott is saying. Well, there's got to be a mistake here. It can't be that this is true. And so the other thing that they did is they conducted a sensitivity analysis whereby they removed any children from the study that weren't in the Henry Ford system from birth onward for at least 5 years, thinking, okay, well, maybe we, got it wrong because the unvaccinated kids, had an average duration of less time. But so by doing that, we're only going to look at kids who were in there for at least 5 years. And what they found was, consistent with the findings, affirming the findings, the risk ratio of chronic disease amongst the vaccinated went up, not down. They also did that sensitivity analysis at 3 years and at 1 year. And each time they still found the vaccinated children a statistically significant increased rate of chronic health issues. They also used cancer as a control, assuming, well, there's no reason vaccines should cause cancer, and they didn't find a statistically significant outcome. So the issue that Dr. Scott points to in a study, which, by the way, he's labeling fundamentally flawed, there was enough information in my submission to have understood what I just said.
He actually said it was flawed by design. You know the study authors of this thing that the people conducted. Do you believe these are professionals that would design a study by design to make it flawed, to give a result that vaccinated children suffered chronic illness 2.5 times? I mean, that's basically what Dr. Scott is saying to the authors of this Henry Ford study.
I mean, I think from the perspective of the establishment, this study is flawed because it's actually designed to detect safety. It's actually designed to reach a conclusion on safety. That's what makes it flawed. It's not like the aluminum study that Dr. Scott pointed to, which he called, rigorous.
So you can get down to the weeds very quickly, and you have to, quite honestly.
Yes.
It's just true. But let's pull it back a little bit. I heard for the first time during the RFK Jr. hearing that there's been a study that vaccines have saved 154 million lives. You have a somewhat interesting take on that. Do you want to talk
sure.
a bit about that scientific gem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the claim about 154 million lives saved is it actually is the epitome of the corruption of science. It reflects the corruption of science in action. While this Henry Ford study, for example, is based on actual data, medical records, the immunization registry, and look carefully at it, this study is just based on guesswork and assumptions. It is a study published by the WHO. It is essentially an advertising piece by them for how effective their immunization program has been over the last 50 years. And they claim there's 154 million lives saved. But when you look at this study, unlike the Henry Ford study, it has no confidence intervals. So what is the confidence interval of that 154 million claim? What is the reliability range of it? It doesn't have one. You know why it doesn't have one? Because it's totally unreliable. As buried in page 42 of the supplement to that quote-unquote advertising piece by the WHO, it's in a section entitled Uncertainty of Estimates, it says that, quote, it cannot put, quote, bounds around the veracity of the estimates. It can't put bounds around the veracity of the estimates. And that, quote, any bounds are arbitrary, end quote, and that, quote, it should not be interpreted as a claim to where the edges of valid estimates possibly lie, end quote. What that means is it could be equally true that 200 million lives were lost because of the vaccine program. It's an unbounded estimate. That is the corruption of science.